my royals. This is part 21 of Meet Your Strawman, where we talk about the bankers who became wankers. Dun, dun, dun. What do you reckon? Alright, I'm going to lose the mask. Boom. I reckon it's probable I could read the entire thing in that mask. But, to be honest with you, it'll sound a little bit more muffled. At least you can actually, hear my Pavarotti style voice. Let's go. What were we talking about last time? We're talking about Mali, talking about combating Al-Qaeda. We're talking about all sorts of countries and how people were getting lynched and assassinated and all that stuff. All because they wanted money. Money. Give me that money, man. Money. Yo, man, this is a stick up. Give me all your money. So, Mali just happens to be one of the world's largest gold producers, with gold accounting for 80% of Mali's exports. Damn. That's where Tutankhamun really should be hanging out. War for the bankers does not get more obvious than that. Did I say bankers? I meant wankers. Americans have been raised by a public school system and media that constantly assures them that the reasons for all these wars and assassinations are many and varied. The US claims to bring democracy to the conquered lands, and they haven't. The usual result of a US overthrow is the imposition of a dictatorship, such as the 1953 CIA overthrow of Iran's democratically elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh, and the imposition of the Shah, or the 1973 CIA overthrow of Chile's democratically elected government of President Salvador Allende, and the imposition of Augusto Pinochet. Or to save a people from a cruel oppressor, revenge for 9/11, or that tired, worn-out, catch-all excuse for invasion, weapons of mass destruction. Aladdin. Assassinations are always passed off as crazed lone nuts to obscure the real agenda. Listen here, bro, you take the rap and we got a little cozy room for you in the underground here. The real agenda is simple. It is enslavement of the people by the creation of a false sense of obligation. That obligation is false because the private central wankers system, by design, always creates more debt than money. With which to repay that debt, private central wanking is not science. It is a religion. A set of arbitrary rules created to benefit the priesthood, meaning the owners of the private central wank. The fraud persists, with often lethal results, because the people are tricked into believing that this is the way life is supposed to be, and no alternative exists or should be dreamed of. The same was true of two earlier systems of enslavement. Rule by divine right and slavery. Yes, human, you are under my boot. Now, while you're down there, shine it. Both of which are systems designed to trick people into obedience, and both of which are now recognized by modern civilization as illegitimate. Now, we are entering a time in human history where we will recognize that rule by debt or rule by private central wankers issuing the public currency as a loan at interest is equally illegitimate. It only works as long as people allow themselves to believe that this is the way life is supposed to be. But understand, this above all else, private central wanks do not exist to serve the people, the community, or the nation. Private central wanks exist to wank off their owners, to make them rich beyond the dreams of Midas, and all for the cost of paper, ink, and the right bribe to the right official. Behind all these wars, all these assassinations, the 100 million horrible deaths from all the wars, lies a single policy of dictatorship. Aladdin. The private central wankers allow rulers to rule only on the condition that the people of a nation remain enslaved to the private central wanks. Failing that, any ruler will be killed and their nation invaded by those other nations which are already enslaved to private central wanks. The so-called clash of civilizations we read about on the corporate media is really a war between wanking systems, with the private central wankers forcing themselves onto the rest of the world. No matter how many millions must die for it, you will perish, humans. Indeed, the constant hate-mongering against Muslims lies in a simple fact, like the ancient Christians prior to the Knights Templars' private wanking system. Muslims forbid usury, which is the lending of money at interest. And that is the reason why the American government and media insist that Muslims must be converted or basically assassinated. They refuse to submit to currencies issued at interest. Good on you guys. They refuse to be debt slaves. I agree with a lot of what they're talking about. I don't agree with their women having to wear burqas though. Let them get some of that sun, you know what I mean? So off to war. American children must go to spill their blood for the gold of the money junkies. We barely survived the last 2 world wars. In the nuclear bioweapon age, are the private central wankers willing to risk incinerating the entire planet just to feed their greed? Apparently so. Flag waving and propaganda aside, all modern wars are wars by and for the private wankers, fought and bled for by third parties unaware of the true reason why they are expected to be crippled and killed. The process is quite simple. As soon as the private central wank issues its currency as a loan and interest, the public is forced deeper and deeper into debt. When the people are reluctant to borrow anymore, that is when the Keynesian economists demand the government borrow more to keep the pyramid scheme working. Tutankhamun coming back into it. When both the people and government refuse to borrow anymore, that is when the wars start. To plunge everyone even deeper into debt to pay for the war. Then after the war, to borrow more to rebuild. When the war is over, the people have about the same as they did before the war, except the graveyards are far larger and everyone is in debt to the private wankers for the next century. This is why Brown Brothers Harriman in New York funded the rise of Adolf Hitler. What a way to end it. Time Magazine's Man of the Year. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that. That's chapter... Well, it's not actually a chapter. There's no chapters. But that is part 21. Tomorrow I will be back down in Darsley with part 22 where we're going to get into the summary. And we're actually moving toward a section that says closing good news. Look at that. There it is. Closing good news. Alright guys. Much love. Freedom.